Here is the GNU Radio flow graph. And here is the received video.
Listen up, y'all.
3, 2, 1, go.
Antenna. Antenna. Blade RF.
This is a simple demo, but it's a great start for the terrestrial work. Recent positive steps have been taken in terms of coming to agreement with AHA to support the payload, ground terminal, and CubeQuest Challenge with DVB-S2 technology. We had a very successful presence at Dayton Hamvention in mid-May. We helped staff the AMSAT engineering booth on Friday and Saturday, and Phase4 Ground was the keynote speaker for the AMSAT Tapper Friday evening annual banquet. We supported the AMSAT forums midday on Saturday, had several meetings with current and potential partners, did a lot of recruiting, explaining, and carrying on, and made substantial forward progress on several technical fronts. The upcoming issue of the AMSAT Journal has complete coverage of all the AMSAT action at Dayton Hamvention. A big thank you to everyone that came to the banquet. It was an extremely enjoyable experience and an honor to speak. The next meeting and presentation was at Qualcomm Incorporated on May 27th. Bob, N4HY, spoke about the payload, and I spoke about the ground terminal to an invited audience of ham radio enthusiasts. Bob provided a riveting history of AMSAT and described how important Qualcomm has been in support of past payloads and satellites. Kathy's work at Dixon Lake was highlighted, and we got to catch up with old friends and colleagues after all the talkie bits concluded. The Wireless Symposium at Virginia Tech starts this week, and quite a few of us will be there. We will be able to get some work done in person with at least 4 other organizations that are actively involved with Phase4 Ground. I'll share all that I can next week. I'm not presenting, but Bob definitely will be. We responded to the call for presentations from DEF CON's Wireless Village. DEF CON will be held in early August. This is an excellent opportunity for a demonstration and feedback. More results were shared from the 5 GHz uplink team. Mike Seguin reports that he finished building up a pair of buffer amps to use between a HackRF and a Skyworks amp. The buffer is providing plenty gain. Mike is working with Paul Wade, W1GHZ, and they are in the process of building up Paul's proposed dual-band feed design. They're going to machine it up and test it out. There are some big improvements announced for Jabber D2, which is one of the components we have identified for use in the server space of Phase4 radios. The Jabber D2 team is actively discussing and reviewing the updates and improvements. Eric Nichols has expressed interest in writing up an article for AMSAT Journal about the topside ionospheric sounding scientific experiment proposal. We don't expect 4B to include this experiment, but we are looking to raise awareness about these sorts of experiments in order to improve our chances of putting together additional payloads. Carrie, N6IZW, who attended the Qualcomm meeting, has agreed to help design and prototype a transverter for the Blade RF so that we can better use this particular SDR in experiments and potentially in recipes. These transverters will also work for other SDRs. We have a draft webpage and a design review for that webpage coming up soon. It can only help to have a findable, friendly face on the web. While some of us may be totally okay with just sticking with GitHub, we really could use a landing page. In the future, this can provide status, manuals, links for buying hardware, yay, a FAQ, etc. Please give feedback on this page. You can find the draft in the GitHub at the link given in the notes. We have an offer of a WordPress from AMSAT's Joe Fitzgerald, and we have an offer of hosting at both AMSAT and Virginia Tech. What we most need to do is to make sure this page says and does what we want. Updates to the error interface document were made in the areas of interoperability, justification, and emission type designation. The payload team has edits and questions, but I haven't received them yet. I'm hoping to not leave Virginia Tech without them. Franklin Antonio asked about phase noise, and that's something I think we need to spend some more time on. The payload team has some initial results in terms of what they're expecting to see, and one of my goals for the upcoming symposium is to follow up on how they arrived at their numbers and how that might possibly affect us. There are a lot of SDRs out there and more on the way. At least one Phase4 Ground volunteer has an early version of the Lime SDR in hand, and if you've been following their blog, they seem quite intent on being relevant in amateur radio. As of today, they are 64% funded with 21 days to go on crowd supply. There's some links to the blog and to the crowd supply page in the notes. As Hackaday noted, what makes Lime SDR interesting is that it is using snappy Ubuntu core as sort of an app store. Developers can make code available and end users can easily download and install that code. If this sort of sounds familiar, it's because we're on a similar track. I think it's the right track. After the Virginia Tech trip, it's back to the lab until August. There's a pile of very interesting work to do. I have no doubt that we'll get substantial expert advice on what the next steps should be for blocks and hardware. At a very minimum, we will be looking at how to best integrate generic stream encapsulation into the GNU radio flow graphs we currently have running. Whether we can integrate or use this existing library or codebase, or would be better off writing our own from scratch, is one of the next things we'll be looking at in the San Diego lab. More soon. If you haven't joined AMSAT or Errol or Tapper, then please do. We can't do this without their support. And you get fun stuff for joining. Tell them I sent you and you'll pay full price.